Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas Construction update video.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to Giga Texas. It's Monday, the 6th of February, 2023, and a lot has happened since I've done my last video. So let me talk about that first. As you can see here, last week a major winter storm came through this area, bringing some pretty heavy icing, and it affected customers all throughout this area of Austin, now to northern San Antonio where I live as well. And most of the damage was caused by trees getting so much ice that they would fall over and it would damage property, which happened to me. It also took out a lot of the power lines because of the ice on the lines and on the trees, and it affected thousands of people around this area. And again, this was caused by physical damage to the power lines and not because of the power grid. And also, just to give you an idea, you can see by these images, this is some of the work that I've been doing over the last several days at my house, trying to get rid of a lot of these trees that just literally shattered and fell over parts of my property, parts of my house as well. So it affected quite a bit of people. And as you can see here, Giga Texas itself actually shut down operations last week from the end of Tuesday all the way through Friday because of not only the cold temperatures and the damage, but the effect on all the contractors and the employees that work here at Giga Texas. So not a lot actually happened while I wasn't flying. Now, the things that have transpired, and I want to show you in the intro real quick, is first we'll start here at the West Main entrance, and you can see they now have covers on both sides of that trapezoidal concrete section, and underneath you can see the formwork and some concrete for some of the cyber berms that they are installing in that area. So it's going to be a treatment that's very reminiscent of what we see on the north side of the factory with those cyber berms as well. So pretty cool. Another thing I want to show you is over here up at the cathode plant, inside that section where the SACME presses were installed. You can now see a lot of these white scaffoldings and platforms being installed all throughout this entire area. Now this is done so they can install additional equipment and machinery that'll be necessary for the operation in this section of the cathode plant. Also on the west side of the cathode plant, as you can see here, some tremendous progress continues on that die shop. Not only has the structure grown even larger, it has now reached that south perimeter grade beam, and as you can see by this image, they're working not only on those deep foundations on the west side, but underneath the cover you can see that they have that yellow moisture barrier down for the ground slab, which means that they're installing the rebar, and then we're going to start seeing ground slabs poured very soon. So it's really amazing to see the progress. The last area I want to highlight, as you can see here, is up at the electrical switchyard. They are now installing the first of the two large transformers that we've been waiting for. And you can see that they've got that concrete pad prepared. They got the grating around the trough to control and hold any of the potential oil that might have been leaked out in case there's an emergency in the future. So they got all that done. They're putting all the pads on to the concrete pad to support that transformer, and the transformer is getting ready to be lifted onto that area. So a lot of great progress. Plenty of other things to see today. It's a little bit overcast, but not too bad, and a little bit windy, but I was able to get all the flight in. As always, thank you very much for your support, and also for all the kind words of support for my damage and what I had to do for the last week. It really means a lot to me, so thank you very much. As always, again, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great week, and take care.
My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Well, it's good to be back at Giga Texas and get the drone into the air after almost a week of having to deal with some of the ice as we talked in the intro. But I hope you enjoy these nice views over the roof of the factory looking towards the east and now heading towards the south, just to get a good idea of the solar panel installation and that big Tesla logo on the roof. You can also see it's a little bit misty, some low clouds, and this will persist throughout the flight, but fortunately the conditions were good enough to get some good images in. So let's get the drone down a little bit lower and let's take a look at some of the developments here on the west side of the General Assembly. As we drop down here, this clearing, it looks like they are now doing even more work than just removing the asphalt. So I don't know what this is going to be. It used to be a small parking lot, but then the asphalt was removed, and now it looks like they're doing some excavation work. So very interesting, another thing to keep track of as things develop. As we approach the west main entrance, we can see the landscape section, how it looks today, all of these test panels with different colors of concrete, and we can also see some major changes here at the main entrance. Now, the covered awnings are to help support the pouring of concrete. You can see actually some of the formwork underneath both of them. It appears that this is two cyber berms that are being installed on either side of this trapezoidal section. We do know that there's electrical conduit that has been run underneath here, so they will most likely be lighted. And the covers are to help with that concrete pour during the inclement weather that we've been having in the recent past. This is a good overall view of how this section looks today. I'll give you a view from this side. You can see the pump truck is active. The concrete trucks haven't arrived right now, but it looks like they're getting ready to start pouring concrete onto the cyber berms, and you can just see the tip of it here, also all the form work. You can also see how it's raised on either side of this trapezoidal section. So this will kind of be matching the cyber berms that we see in the north end of the building, and also on some renders that we saw at Cyber Rodeo last year. There will be more of the cyber berms on the south end eventually. So let's head down to the south and take a look at some of the activity that is going on at this section of the site today. As we arrive at the southwest corner, we can see crews installing these blue water pipes. Also, it looks like some connections that have valves. This is for drinkable or potable water, and it's going to be installed all along this section of the construction site. Also, you can see this area where the crews are working. There's been some drilling with this red equipment, and you can see some of the pipes sticking out of the ground here in a circular pattern, and that's a very interesting development. I'm kind of curious to see what they're ending up designing and installing here. As we look towards the south, you can see how this end of the building and the clearing appears at this point in time. Looks like they continue to have a little bit of ponding of water from the ice storms that we had last week, but with the improving weather, we should start to see some resumed work on this end of the building in preparation for that major construction to lengthen the overall length of the Giga Texas factory. But also you can see how the Model Ys are stacked up on the temporary parking lot on the left-hand side, and there are some at the south end of the building getting some superchargers, but there's not a whole lot of Model Ys right now. Most of them are on the east side. We'll see that a little bit later. Now, as we continue to work our way towards the east here on the south end, you can see how the cyber pond appears. Some of the materials on the south side of the road in the middle where you can see the vehicles moving. And it looks like a lot of the materials have actually been cleared out here. It seems to me over the last few days, less and less materials are being stored here. So that's an interesting thing I'll continue to monitor. And as I mentioned earlier, you can see quite a bit of standing water from the storm that came through last week. I'm going to give you a view from this side looking back towards the west so you can see again how this end of the building looks right now. And hopefully we'll see construction resuming here very soon. Across the highway you get a really good view of the expansion of the warehouse on wheels, some of the material staging, and I'll give you a closer view of that in just a little bit. But let's bring the drone down here. There's an interesting operation going on this southeast corner where this white painted section is. It looks like the crews are actually cleaning this section. You can see some of the water spray on the unpainted gray concrete on the left-hand side. But I'm not sure exactly why they are doing this, but it's a very interesting development. It could be that this is part of those test painted sections, and they're just kind of seeing how they have lasted over this last several months and seeing what kind of maintenance is done on them. But I don't know. It's very interesting. The white truck you see on the left-hand side of the screen is the company that did the actual painting of the wall, so they're the ones doing the cleaning right now. You can see some more of the stormwater pipe just at the bottom of the screen. Still hasn't been connected for that bypass. You can also see quite a bit of equipment on that east side of stamping machine structure. As we turn back towards the southwest, this will give you a lower altitude view of the clearing, the cyber pond, and also the materials here on the south side. As I mentioned, it looks like quite a bit of the materials has been moved away from here, and it looks pretty sparse as far as steel components, the materials. So it looks like they are definitely clearing this section out, possibly because it will be needed for the future construction. I'll give you a little bit of view across the highway, as I mentioned earlier, so you can get a closer view of that contractor parking lot, that large triangular section, all of the warehouse on wheels trailers that are being stored over here temporarily, and that continuing to shrink material staging location just to the north of those trailers. I'll bring the drone back down and give this closer view here of the activity with the Model Ys, and also some of the work with this truck. Looks like they may be starting to bring the equipment necessary to do the work on this side of the building. But as you can see, there's not as many Model Ys here right now. Most of them are on the east side. There is some activity here on this temporary platform with more materials arriving and being moved up there. These two large doors, which is stamping 2, where they're assembling more of the AIDA stamping presses and other metal forming machinery, is pretty active as well. So let's proceed over the power lines and take a look at some of the activity here in this large clearing. So we've talked before, I'm not sure exactly what this purpose will be other than temporary storage of some dirt that's used at other points around the site as needed, but there is a lot of activity here with some of the earthwork and earth moving equipment. And this material staging location, you can see quite a few new trailers have been brought in here. This is where you used to see materials and some equipment stored, but that's been moved out for these trailers. These two concrete aprons that are in front of the receiving doors, looks like they've had concrete poured and they're just finishing up the second of the two. Also on this temporary staging and testing lot, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen a new asphalt section has been poured, and this will allow the vehicles to move in here more easily and avoid traffic. You can also see quite a few of the Model Ys are being stored here temporarily. This is again where they do some testing and checkouts before they are made ready for pickup by the transport trucks. You can see this large clearing in front of the receiving doors continues to have the plumbing work done before they can reestablish the apron. And then this intersection has had quite a bit of concrete poured. In fact, you can see crews pouring yet another section. And it's also a very interesting pattern that you can see in the concrete based on the formwork. And across the road, it looks like it'll be mirroring what we see on the south side. And as I mentioned, you can see the concrete pump trucks actively pumping the concrete for this particular pattern. So something else to monitor. I'm kind of curious to see how it will look when it is completed. We'll turn back towards the east. You get a chance to see this east parking lot and also the east new car staging and transportation lot, where you see some vehicles being picked up by trucks right now and quite a few Model Ys waiting for trucks to pick them up. And as I mentioned earlier, it's nice to see that there's a variety of colors on the Model Y. I think this may be related to the change in the EV tax credit, which raised the amount that the Model Ys can qualify from $55,000 to $80,000. So that allows for more colors. This is a good view of the east warehouse on wheels and how it looks today. And you can see the clearing to the north has been cleaned out of all of the contractor vehicles, and now they're starting to use it for some sort of material storage. On the far east, this is where more materials are stored, a lot of the trailers for the contractor offices, and quite a bit of other materials as well. On the bottom of the screen, those are the concrete panels that were cut out from the south end being temporarily stored here. You can also see a lot of earthwork on this hill. This is where they do a lot of recycling of concrete and other materials as well. As we approach towards the battery cathode plant, one of the things I want to show you first as we get a little bit lower is this section with the trailers and all of the cooling systems on top. It looks like they now have a lot more trailers around, some more generators, and it just looks more active. I've heard that this is for food service and storage, but I still have been unable to confirm that. As we get closer to the battery cathode plant, one of the things you'll note here, where the wall panels have been removed with the blue panels, you can also see another temporary loading platform being installed here. So there'll be 3 on this particular side, which is very interesting. You can also see quite a bit of the containers, both the blue ones and then the wood ones with the white tops here. More of these trailers, and these white parts are parts of platforms that are being installed. In fact, I'll show you in here shortly where many of these are already being installed. You can also see these crates with the black louvers getting ready for future installation. And as we turn around, I'll give you a look inside here. This is where the SACME presses were installed. You can see them still covered with protective tarps, but also, in addition to the large crate on the left that has been delivered, you can also see the white poles being installed. These are those platforms. They're also on the right-hand side of the screen, and this is so that they can install more machinery and equipment that will support the production in this part of the battery cathode plant. So very interesting to be able to see all of this, fortunately with the wall panels removed, at least for right now. As I turn the drone back towards the north, you get an idea of how the battery test facility, that small metal shop, looks like, and also this section with the gravel mix on top. It's still not being used yet, so I'm not sure if this will be parking, material storage, or something else, and I'll continue to monitor that. On the north end clearing, you see quite a bit of activity. On the upper right-hand side, you can see some earthwork machinery. You can also see in that large field some more of the materials being stored. The crane has been moved here that used to be on the south side of the die shop on the west of the battery cathode plant. And you can also just see how this section is sort of transforming less materials, some workshops, a little bit of wind as you can see on the left with the flag and the plastic. But overall, most of the work is now being moved here to the plant proper and the west side. So this is a good view of how this portion of the battery cathode plant and the west side looks. You can see some of those concrete vaults on the bottom of the screen, the temporary storage shed on the left with that white roof. A lot of the pipes still being arranged and ready for installation on that galvanized steel structure next to the plant, and the die shop, how it continues to grow. So let's first look at this galvanized structure, give you a close-in view, and you can see that quite a bit more of these pipes have been installed. You can see those 4 new concrete pads that were poured on the right-hand side. This is where most likely 4 pumps are going to be installed, and I believe that that's what's wrapped up in that white plastic wrap next to it. So a lot of progress with that particular structure. As we turn back towards the die shop, you can see on the left-hand side that yellow section with the yellow moisture barrier. This is in preparation so they can put rebar and start pouring concrete for the slab. You can see quite a bit of work going on here in these recessed and heavily reinforced sections with the concrete and rebar piles and piers, and it looks like they are continuing to configure this section for eventual lots of heavy rebar and some more concrete. You can also get a sense of how the structure is forming on this west side. You can see those really strong columns with the bridge crane rails installed, and how that will work on this section of the building. And you can see more of those double columns being prepared here for installation, and also some more of the railings for the bridge crane on the ground preparing for installation. It looks like all of the footings are now completed. Looks like they're working on just a few more of the forms to remove them on that southwest side. You can also see how they're putting beams on for the roof here on the south side as well. A lot more of the roof decking has been installed, and quite a bit of the beams throughout the roof has been installed now. The building is full length on all but the west side, and that will rapidly be assembled here in the very near future, I'm pretty sure. The other thing that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen is the conduit for the electrical system is now starting to extend back towards the west. And you can see just how little bit of steel is remaining to be installed on this building. As I pull back, you'll see that temporary line pond on the left. You can see some of the earthwork going on nearby, and the continued installation of this blue water pipe that will connect the battery cathode plant complex to the water main. You can see it in the trench, how that is looking right now, and more of those blue water pipes waiting for installation on the left-hand side of the screen. So quite a bit of progress going on here for all of the utilities as well as the construction at the battery cathode complex. As we move a little bit further to the south, I'll show you the transplanted tree. Seems like it weathered the ice storm okay. That's the one nearest to the road. It used to be over near where that yellow equipment is located, and crews are beginning the preparation to start moving some more of those trees as well. As we fly over these trailers, which is used by Tesla for new employee orientation, we'll see some of the activity that is going on at the new permanent electrical switchyard. And fortunately, there is a lot of interesting developments today. We'll start off here. As you can see, one of the 2 very large transformers has been delivered. Take a look at the trailer that it is resting on, just how many wheels are necessary to support this extremely heavy item. And also you can see the crews are preparing some of the metal pads on top of the concrete pad to support the weight of this transformer. Also around the perimeter of that pad you can see some of the grates that cover up the little trench. That's used in case there were a problem with the transformer and some of the internal oil were to leak. It will help contain that oil in those small trenches. The second pad is still waiting for a little bit more of the work, and then there will be a second transformer installed there as well. As we continue to work our way towards the north, this is a good view of the rest of the activity. You can see some drilling operations, and we'll come back and I'll give you a closer view of that in just a second. But it looks like, for the most part, the cable tray trenches are completed. Most of the steel has been assembled with the exception of the 7th A-frame. And I'm going to pull back a little bit here just to show you the crews that are continuing to work on these new steel poles, and it looks like they're starting to prepare for some of those high tension wires to be run to these new poles and then back towards the electrical switchyard, and they'll be connected using these A-frame structures that you see currently installed. Now, as I mentioned, there's some drilling going on. You can also see some crews with form work for some more of the footings. And I believe this is where the 7th of these A-frame towers will eventually be installed. And this bay, if you will, that's on the left-hand side is where it will connect the electrical switchyard eventually to the Megapack battery electric storage system. I'll give you a top-down view here of the work that's going on for the transformer installation. Again, you can see the pad, the grates around with that small trench. Also, the metal pads that are being installed on top of the concrete that will eventually support this extremely heavy transformer that's on the truck. So anyway, it's great to see finally this activity. We've been waiting for this for quite some time. So let's proceed a little bit further to the south to the east parking lot where there's some activity going on that I want to show you related to HDPE pipe installation. So here in the east parking lot section, you can see that long two pipes. Those have been fuse welded together, and the stack of pipes shows what they look like before they have been fuse welded together. You can also see some trench work going on here, and then nearby you can see some of the workers next to that fuse welding device, that white device where the 3 workers are standing next to. Quite a bit of the trenching is being done to install the HDPE pipe, and then across the road, which will give you a closer view, is the actual underground horizontal drilling machinery. So as we continue a little bit further to the south on the east side of the casting machine structure, this gives you a current view of the racking system and all the castings that have been developed, and how this is continuing to transform here on the east side. More of them here near this clearing section by the receiving doors, and this just will give you a closer view of the work that's going on to continue with the plumbing in this dirt section before they can reestablish that concrete apron. And on the right hand side you can see more of the work on that intersection that's being reconfigured as well. But more castings have been brought further to the south along this edge of the building. And you can see that it's been cleared out a little bit here on this side of the building. Now we're going to proceed over towards this parking lot. I'll bring the drone down. I'm going to show you not only the excavator on the right hand side, but you can see this equipment, particularly this orange or red drill. And I'll give you a closer view here. This is the drill that's used for horizontal drilling for that HDPE pipe that I showed you that was being constructed on that east parking lot. So this is necessary for them to be able to pull that pipe through eventually. Now here we see some new of the racks have been placed here, and they've also removed all of those stacked castings that were here last week. I think those were used for recycling. You can see a few of them here stacked next to those racking systems as well. As we continue to move the drone around the north side of the building, I'll give you a view of the work and materials that are being moved inside here. You can see that it continued to have more and more materials moved inside, less and less is remaining on the outside, which is outstanding to see. So it shows that there's a lot of progress going on inside. And here it looks like another large piece of equipment was lifted up onto that third or lower platform into the 4680 battery production section of the building. So let me do a large pullback, give you a good reveal of the entire site today, and I hope that you enjoyed the views, the discussion, and information along the way. I'm just really glad to be able to be back flying now that the winter storm is over, and I'm glad to see all of Giga Texas. Thank you for watching and have a great week.